Holmes was born. Then he got fat, bald, and tired. Sup, Holmes?
I'm Jonathan Holmes. This is my show, Sup Holmes. And this is Paul Greasley?
Yeah, Greasley, yeah.
Greasley.
Yeah.
That's much better
Sort
sounding.
of, yeah, so I'm Paul Greasley, and I make games, I guess.
You've been making them for a while now, right, Paul?
Yeah, man, for about 8 years, but not like to public or anything, you know, just tinkering and, I don't know, just needed something to do with my time, basically.
Huh. How old were you when you started?
Probably early 20s. I mean, I had an interest in art and stuff well before that, but yeah, just started picking up things like Game Maker. Well, it wasn't Game Maker at first. It was like, you ever heard of HyperCard? It's like on, okay, it's ancient, right? This is going back. This is probably before the 8 years, actually. Probably in my teens, my parents had like a black and white, you know, like Mac, one of those, you know, those really crappy box Macs,
Sure.
and it had this program called HyperCard, and it was basically like it was almost like a web page type thing. You do one thing and then you could swap to another page. It was real primitive, and I started just tinkering in that and went from there. But I didn't really think of making games as a serious thing probably till my 20s, like 22 or something.
Huh. What made
21.
you interested in them to
Um,
start with?
It was a series of things. I always wanted to do movies, but it just seemed like so out of reach. Like, I made a heap of movies where just run around with the camera filming my mum's feet type thing in a swamp, and, you know, horror movies and stuff like that. And I just kind of like had this branch in my life. Do I want to make something interactive, or do I want to make movies? And I wanted to tell stories and stuff, and that's what, like, worlds and stories is what interests me. It still does today. But I just, I like games from my youth and stuff too, so it was kind of like, do I want to make movies, or do I want to kind of take this new medium? Because I could see it was still growing. You know, like games, I don't know, when I was a kid, and even when I was a teen, I mean, they're still evolving, whereas movies are kind of, I mean, they're solidified, you know, like, for the most part. They're not changing too much, whereas games are still evolving, and I thought it was kind of like, it's interesting. It's an interesting, you know, it's an interesting thing to do with my life, especially if I want to, like, do something creative. Like, why not be a part of something that's evolving?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. What were some of the games that you liked growing up?
Well, here's a funny thing, right? My parents, they were against, like, having game consoles and stuff, so, like, you know, I wasn't playing games in my youth, pretty much. Like I said, we had that two-color Mac, and we had, like, all these just, like, little crappy games, you know, like Carmen San Diego or whatever, you know, like, just real crappy games. And all my mates had like, consoles and stuff, and we'd be over there playing, like, Mortal Kombat 2 and Street Fighter and stuff. So, I mean, probably about 14 or 15 when I started to, like, I guess you'd call it, like, rebel from my parents. I got, like, all that stuff and just, you know, found my own way into it, really, pretty late. So games I played during my youth, it's probably a hard question to answer because I didn't play that many games when I was a kid. I mean, I just played games at my friend's house, and it was just whatever they had. So, but I mean, what stood out to me was, like, early Zeldas, Zelda 2, kind of like the, you know, black sheep of the Zelda family. But I really liked it. I thought it was cool. I was really attracted to, like, how the world was built, and just, you know, how many intricacies there was and little hidden secrets, and, you know, you could walk around on the map and there was, like, little hotspots of secret bits, and I was fascinated by it, man. Like, I couldn't understand how it was made, but I was definitely fascinated by it. Probably about the same, you know, as a kid I was fascinated by movies too, because they were, you know, telling the story in a different way. Games, even when I was 14 and 15, was like Donkey Kong Country and stuff like that. So they weren't like the height of, you know, what they are now. You couldn't do like a like one of the big storytelling games like that we see today, kind of like the latest Deus Ex or whatever. Like you couldn't do that in well, I guess Final Fantasy, but it still doesn't have like the visual fidelity and like the world so real. Final Fantasy was probably the biggest game that stood out for me, like before my 20s, like Final Fantasy 6 and 7.
But as far as I'm aware, you haven't made an RPG yet. I've got.
I actually want to. It's kind of like a goal of mine, but I'm sure you've like talked to enough indies to know that budgets are pretty tight when you're making games, and something like an RPG, as much as I want to make one, it's not really feasible to do. Like it's going to be like 3 or 4 years of my life, and I have problems sticking to one game as it is. Like if you see my site, there's just like hundreds of tiny little like work in progress bits all over the place. So I have like a problem with like sticking with one project, especially when like finances are an issue. Yeah, so I mean, when you make games for money, it's heaps different too. Like I find making little freeware games and like competition games and stuff's like really, it's where I got my start. But it's also like heaps liberating. Like you don't have to worry about, oh crap, is there going to be a market for this? Whatever. You just make something fun, and it's like if it tanks, who cares? And
yeah, but it's you'll die if that's.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah,
which is the downside.
Yeah, I mean, if I spent 4 years on a game like an RPG or something, it'd have to sell, so there'd be that pressure there too. So,
well, what if somebody came to you? Well, for one, there's always Kickstarter, which might be a way to.
Yeah, well, not in Australia or New Zealand.
Not
but,
working
yeah.
in New Zealand. Can you do? I don't know enough about it actually.
We got,
is it region locked in a way? You can't do Kickstarter.
Yeah, pretty much. We've got Indiegogo, which is it's not a big deal. Like you just don't get as much attention. My Rambro is actually one of my projects. I tried to Indiegogo it, and it didn't really take off at all. I don't know if it was just because I put like a half-assed amount of effort into marketing it or what, but I just saw that as a sign, really. Just
how long ago was that you did that?
Oh, probably a year now. Yeah, probably exactly a year, because I remember doing it at the start of the year. I'll get to that later, like the whole how I went full-time and stuff, but that was kind of like the turning point where I thought, hey, I might want to try and make this a full-time thing rather than just doing it around, because I had like normal jobs pretty much up until mid last year. And then I thought, gonna take the risk and try and do this thing full time.
I'm glad you did. I'm excited about what you're gonna do, and I'm glad you're showing people how to do it too. People should check out your YouTube page. It has a lot about your games, but also how your games are made in terms of both.
Yeah. I'm trying to do some tutorials and stuff, man. I don't know if they're catching on much yet, but if anyone's got some questions or something, I usually just answer them on my Twitter or YouTube or whatever, because it is like, I mean, I think for some people there's that that gap that, especially now that we're on the internet, there's no one there to sit there and like kind of hold your hand and tell you what to do, but there is in a way. Like if you're vocal on like like Tig Source or YouTube or whatever, you can find people that are cool and like go, hey, ask them questions about how to make games and stuff, because it's pretty daunting when you first start. Like there's just so many things you need to kind of be good at to make a decent game. That's why I never really released much when I first started, because I was just really, I'd make something, and I'm kind of a perfectionist, so it doesn't really help, but I'd make something and it was just like, damn, these people online are just doing it way better than me, just throw it in the bin and start again. So
you kept with it. Why do you think you stuck with it even when you were making work you weren't necessarily totally happy?
I don't know, man. I think I was going through a pretty rough time in my life, like, I don't know, a couple of years ago. And it was just kind of like a nice thing to do So a nice thing to do with my free time. Yeah, I enjoy it. Like it's more than anything, I enjoy making free games, and I think um, it was just it beats drinking. It beats like going around and being a stooge in a car basically. So I had nothing better to do with my time, and I still, for the most part, I make free games because it interests me, and that's about it. I'm trying to make a paid game now, but it's mostly to pay the bills and to make this thing kind of a bit more serious, I guess.
Is that Under the Garden?
It's Under the Ocean.
Oh.
Under the Garden was like a...
Sorry, I mixed them up.
Oh, that's fine, man. Everybody does. They're on the same side. Yeah, Under the Ocean will be like probably the first serious attempt at trying to make some money in games. But it still feels like really forced. Like I don't want to charge money for it or anything.
Mm.
I think that's like 8 years of bad thought right there. Just making freeware games for the most part.
Well, it's funny. We had a guy named Jasper Byrne on not that long ago, and he said almost the exact same thing. Then he released a game for the first time for sale. He'd been making games for years. He made a two-dimensional remake of Silent Hill 2 that got a lot of good press.
Yeah, I played it. It's good.
Oh, did you? Cool.
It was
yeah.
Was that the competition game, the D-Makes competition on Tixors?
I think you're right. Yeah, you would
Yeah.
know better than me, actually.
Yeah, I remember it. It was pretty cool. Like, and then he went on to, well, yeah, obviously he did Lone Survivor. So I mean,
Right, and now he's
Huge now,
got the
so-
money to keep making stuff. He's making
yeah,
that's coming to consoles. It's and now he's making a new game with that money that he's really excited about. So that could be you. I would hope, because he took that. There's a certain feeling you get from a game that wasn't made by someone who was after money, who didn't consider catering to a certain audience other than just trying to make something for people of like mind to enjoy. And your games have been like that from the start. And when people get behind someone like that, they get behind them 100%, and they get a lot of money eventually.
yeah.
I hope for you that would be good.
Well, yeah, I think part of that's true. I think people, for the most part, I mean, yeah, okay, there's probably a small portion of people who like religiously follow, like me, I like religiously follow whatever JWAP's doing, Lambert, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, he's my favorite developer. Anything he puts out, I will retweet to the max and do everything in my power to spread it around and play it to death, basically. There's people out there that are just like me, have kind of fanboy preferences with developers and stuff, but I think a lot of people just don't care. Like, majority of the public, maybe not people that play indie games, but like people on Reddit or whatever, they just don't care. They just care about, the end product. So I think that's changing. Like, I think that's changing with indie games becoming a big thing, but I still think it's kind of like, some people just don't care. They just care about the end result, and then, you get people who, like me, just will follow one developer pretty religiously. But that's a plan, man. Hopefully can make some sort of living out of it. I don't want to be rich or anything. It's just I got nothing to spend the money on. I don't work well in a team, so I mean I wouldn't want the money to hire anyone. It doesn't really make sense. I just want to live out in the country and make games, basically. That's my life goal.
That is so great. I am 100% sure you're going to do it. That's me, but you are probably not as sure.
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure still because, I haven't really had much success yet, so...
That's stupid. But you did win an award a while ago. You've won several awards, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, just competitions and stuff, but, I mean, it's different to, like, making a commercial game, tell you that now. Like, making games for free is just, it's almost like another world. I mean, Under the Garden, which was the prequel to Under the Ocean, was a free game, and it was made for, what was it called? A Game by Its Cover competition on Tixors. And basically what you get is you just get a cover, like a game card cover that they're all faked. They're all done by artists and stuff. It was cool. It was really, really well done. And you'd make a game about it, right? And I don't know. I like the challenge of trying to stress your brain for however long it takes to try and knock out a game in a set amount of time and make it good as well. So, I mean, I did that, and then it sort of evolved into Under the Ocean, which is kind of like its big budget. Well, not big budget. We spent more than a month on it.
Yeah, Under the Garden is pixel art.
Yeah.
It's very attractive game, but it's not a game that looks like it is lavish in its detail. Whereas you took the same characters and the same premise for Under the Ocean, and it looks like watercolored. Did you do most of that art yourself, or do you have?
Yeah, I did all the art, man. Apart from I got a mate to jump in on some of the animations because excuse me, we were shipping a build and we just ran out of time, so I needed some help there. But yeah, I did all the art apart from the main character's animation, and I'm still not happy with it. I still look at it and go, it's got a long kind of. Probably this year will be just all Under the Ocean, or try to knock it out as soon as possible. I forgot the question.
That's okay. I'm not sure there was one, but but it's okay. Let's tell the people what Under the Ocean is all about, so they can picture what it is.
Well, it's like I said, it was it's a sequel to Under the Garden, which is, I mean, they're basically the same thing mechanically. They're both kind of like survival platformers. Probably wouldn't have had an easy way to describe it till that Don't Starve came along, but it's kind of like a platforming Don't Starve that predates it, if that counts. Like survival platformer with, I'd say about 50-50. You spend a lot of your time like building campfires and cooking animals and pulling them apart and fishing and stuff like that, and building weapons, like crude weapons, like sticks with a bit of stone sort of thing. And you're stranded on this island in Under the Ocean, and you have to fend for yourself basically, and harsh weather and all that stuff are basically present constantly. So kind of like like Castaway or something,
Yeah. Is it a game
the movie
where...
Castaway.
Oh, sure. Wilson and all that.
Wilson,
yeah, excellent.
Everything,
excellent movie. If you start up a game, how long would you expect to play it? Is it the kind of game where you start and you think, well, this is going to be an 8-hour campaign with a beginning, middle, and an end, or is it like, I hope I survive for 20 minutes, and then if I make it that far, then I'll learn some skills that maybe I can apply to another game, and then I'll survive 40 minutes, and so on.
It's kind of like really early alpha at the moment. I mean, we didn't have much time to spend it sort of developing it last year, so a lot of the features aren't really there yet. But multiplayer's on the cards. Like early access on Steam just came out. We got on that, so I don't know how well it's doing yet, but I can assume it's better than just our site. So it probably should be enough to fund multiplayer. So between you and me and whoever's watching, yeah, multiplayer will be in. And I actually wrote a document like that sort of covers most of the stuff we want to do this year. But to answer your question, right now, I don't know, I couldn't play it for more than an hour or two before kind of hit a content wall or, a bug wall or something where it just breaks the immersion. So it's hard to say right now that the end goal is to have, like you basically log in to someone's server, you can host your own or whatever, and you'll cooperate with your friends to build, sort of survive the elements, build a raft and cross islands and try and find your way home. So, and that could take anywhere from like a couple of hours up to multiple sessions of that. So it depends how lucky you get. How it'll be moving island to island, scavenging for resources, avoiding natives or whatever. So it's kind of like an extended Castaway, I guess, in game form. You're going to be sort of relying on your friends to, work as a group, I guess, and like survive the tropical environment, basically. So yeah, it could. I don't know. End goal, it'd be nice to have like 10 plus hours of gameplay. We'll see.
Sounds awesome. Is being that you've wanted to make stories, sounds like you've definitely made a world, but you also have the instinct in you to tell a direct story. Do you want there to be a narrative where you and your friends kind of experience something at the end that sends a message about what it's all about? Or?
This is a real, because this is one of the projects. I said I don't work alone all the time. Sorry, well, this is the case because it's a big project, and I don't really know. Like, my code isn't as good as my art. My art ain't that good. So I brought someone on to, and I've worked with this dude before. His name's Mike Reitzenstein. He did tons of Flash games. That's what I used to be doing before this, to try and make some money, but it didn't really work out. So, but yeah, anyway, I brought him on, and he's not keen on the whole story idea until recently. I think he's warm to it, but before this, we just had like a text opening thing, and it just grates me looking at it, like trying to tell a story with, like just fading in some text in the bottom right-hand corner or left-hand corner. You had crashed ashore on a shipwreck or something. I want to show it. I want to like show, I'll tell you now just quickly. I want the lobby for the multiplayer aspect to be, you're inside a plane or you're inside a ship and it's shaking around as it sort of gets smashed by waves, and you've got like X amount of time. Think like a Team Fortress 2 type, the starting area, how you're in the gates roll up type thing, and you got to run out. Sort of a similar thing, except you outfit your character. You're inside this ship, and you can see through the portholes on the ship that it's just getting trashed outside, and sirens are going off and everything. It sets the mood, and then you run, and as the ship's sinking, you exit the ship. And I think that could add heaps to that's the sort of thing that I want to add to the game that doesn't have currently story-wise. And of course, you mentioned that at the end as well. Yeah, it'd be nice to have like a similar thing when you find your way home. You return to civilization. Maybe that's a bit shorter and more vague because everybody's concept of civilization will be different. But for the plane crash and the shipwreck and stuff like that, where you find yourself on this island, I think that's pretty important to cover. And yeah, hopefully Mike's keen on doing that this year because I think it'd be great.
Well, I'm keen on it.
Cool.
Gosh darn it. I'll tell Mike to make it if I have to. He'll give me his email. I'll harass him.
Send him an email and just get everybody to spam it.
Because I think that sounds incredible. It's, like you mentioned Don't Starve earlier, and of course...
Yeah, I mean, Don't Starve sort of beat us to the punch, but...
I don't know, it sounds like a budding genre, and I get the feeling that there's a lot of room in that genre, the whole get to know yourself and your environment through survival, but not survival horror. I think people are so used to hearing the word survival and they think, oh, well, this is going to make me feel afraid all the time. But there's a different kind of excitement / dread / wonder about being in a survival scenario that people are really waking up to, and it's been great to see it become more of an accepted genre. When before, the only game I could think of before that really put that in the focus was Lost in Blue. I don't know if you ever played that.
Yeah, I played that. It was good.
It was almost good,
Okay, put it this way. It had elements that made it fantastic, but then it kind of ruined it with just stuff that didn't feel right in the game,
Yeah, exactly. And I'm excited to see that people are running with it now, yourself definitely included.
Yeah, I think it's something that hasn't really been touched till recently. I think, games like Animal Crossing and stuff share a lot of like similarities with survival, even though they're not. It's basically wandering around a town and fishing, but that was where a lot of the inspiration came from. It wasn't like, oh, you've got to make Lost in Blue. It was more, when I was making Out of the Garden, I was just, I saw this game cart and I thought, that'd be cool. Gardening sim or something like that. And then it just sort of evolved. Like I did a fishing element to it, and that didn't really work out. And then I'm like, hey, wait a minute, it could work if you're like lost in the woods or something, or you're in some Arctic, wilderness, and you have to survive. So I went with that for a bit, and it just worked. So I just kept going with it, and yeah, that's basically it. The game was finished before I had much more thought, really.
Yeah, yeah. I hadn't thought of Animal Crossing in that genre, but it is just hunting and gathering in
It
that
pretty much
game.
all and decorating your house and stuff like that. But
Sure,
who does
sure.
that?
And that's I think the
I just run
latest
around
Animal
doing
Crossing
stuff.
just hit 3 million units sold in Japan.
Yeah,
It's the kind of gameplay people of all walks of life can really embrace, I think, on an instinctual level.
yeah. I think survival's pretty much untapped. I wanted to do like a everybody's on like the zombie thing. Probably last year was pretty big for the zombies, but I think survival. It stems from like zombie apocalypse type stuff. But there's heaps of room for like interpretation, and there's a lot of untapped stuff too. Like, I wanted to do like a financial survival thing. 'Cause, I don't play many games anymore, but I read like a lot of news and watch a lot of movies and stuff, and I'm fascinated by like the financial collapse and all that. So I always wanted to do a game around that, but just haven't really found the time yet. So there's heaps of survival stuff that's interesting to me, and it's not just like what everybody else is doing. I guess like zombies and island survival now. So got to stay ahead of the curve.
Sure, and keep in touch with what people's subconsciouses are churning over, and almost everybody I know is worried about money in some way, and there's this temptation to try to figure out the riddle of how to not be poor and starve, and no one can do it from what I
Yeah,
can tell,
I
but
don't,
we
I
all
don't
have
think
it in the
that's
back of our heads, like, how can we
yeah.
make sure that we aren't one of the people who is poor?
Yeah, there's probably some games that have done it recently, probably better than I could have ever, touch. But it's those sorts of ideas are interesting to me. Like, and stupid stuff. Like, I'll make a stupid game just because it's fun. I'm actually working on I can't probably release it just because it's got like content that probably going to get me sued. But I got like a Will Smith dancing game in progress, and just stupid stuff, man. I'll make anything. Like, if I got an idea, I'll just sit down and prototype it.
What happens in the Will Smith dancing game?
It's awesome, actually. It's okay. So Xbox controller, right? Now, each one of the analogs is his arms, and you'll swap it up. So like, you'll control his arms with the analogs and stuff, and you can do like timed moves and stuff, and then you switch it up, and you do like a moonwalk, and it's all to the tune of like various Will Smith songs, and it'll switch it up, and he'll go from like, Wild Wild West themed music, and he'll be in a little Wild Wild West vest, and he'll do a spin around. You know how the Will Smith spin around goes? He goes, woo, and then spins around. And he'll be in, it's awesome, man, trust me. It's gonna be free, but just because I'm gonna get sued if I try and charge for it. But yeah, that's if I even release it, we'll see.
You have to release that. Don't even say that. That's
Yeah.
oh, that sounds incredible. To
So
have
it's
that.
kind of like, it's a physics dancing game. It's kind of like Q-Op, whatever it's called. Except you're controlling like Will Smith, and it's two-player. What
Are
more
there
do
two
you
Will
want?
Smiths, or does he have a brother, Bill Smith, maybe?
Well, I actually had Carlton, off. He's just It's so prototype right now that it's just there. I haven't really thought about cleaning it up and putting it out there, but yeah, it works. It's fun. I just need like the right. The core gameplay is there, but it doesn't have like meta game. It doesn't have like the story or anything there, and that's a bit of work. So yeah, I'll
Yeah.
release it when.
Do you have to move their arms and do the Will Smith spin and the Carlton dance
Oh
to the
yeah,
rhythm?
yeah, hell yeah, yeah, definitely, man. It's
So yeah, is that complicated to time it to the music? Is that kind
um,
of coding and
I tried it with both actually. It kind of plays like I tried it timing it to the music, and it kind of goes out. I don't know why, it's a technical problem. Anyway, short answer is I've tried it both ways, and I kind of like it where it's not timed to the music. It's just like, do different poses. Because I've been watching a lot of Will Smith things, and they're not really like timed to the music. He just does his own thing, and it's awesome. So, yeah, I actually think it's better when it just gives you a move. Like, it'll give you, do a spin, and then you just do, like the spin on the controller, and it'll be, changed to whatever. There's only like 5 songs in there. So, I mean, Will Smith's got like...
That is plenty of songs for a free
I mean,
Will Smith and Carlton dancing game. So don't you
well,
worry
I don't know
your
about
pretty little head
Keep
about
Carlton
that.
yet, but
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make false
no, that's
promises.
fine.
Did you
That's
play
what-
the Perfect Strangers game that came out not that long ago on Flash?
Perfect Strangers, nah.
I will
Doesn't-
send that
doesn't
to
sound
you.
familiar.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a special. Have you seen that show? I don't know if they had it in New Zealand.
I don't know,
Strangers.
man. I don't have a TV.
It's from the 80s or 90s. I'll send that to you right after the
All
show.
Cool.
Excellent. So I'm really excited about what you're doing, if that's not clear enough. And I'm glad you're going to not force people to just do the sheet music thing in your Will Smith dancing game, because it
Oh
doesn't-
yeah, I mean,
to
they can
give
actually
us
load
the
their own
opportunity to
songs if they
spin.
want.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, they can load their own songs and stuff if they want to, like, get Will Smith dancing or something else. But I mean, it's just whatever, It's just a joke game, man. I don't know.
It sounds. See, this is the thing that. Sorry to make the camera shake. This is the kind of thing that endears the players to the developers. It's the kind of thing you don't see as much as he wants to do it. Cliff Bleszinski and Ken Levine don't get to just make these kinds of games and say, "Yeah, I did that." They're put in a position where there's so much distance between them and their audience, whether they like it or not. Shigeru Miyamoto talks about it all the time, and how he tries to maintain his closeness to his audience as much as he can by not taking too much money. He still rides a bike to work, that sort of thing. But it's unavoidable. He's in a completely different position than the people who play his games are, whereas you are not. You know, on some level, that what I've been wanting all year is a Will Smith dancing game.
I don't know if you've been wanting it, or I've just been wanting to make it, to be honest.
Yeah, it's probably not conscious, but you got me so excited talking about your Will Smith dancing game. I am legitimately thrilled about the prospect of playing it, and I feel selfish that I'm talking about it so long. Just
I don't know if I
think
should be saying this on like the stream or anything, but the story was like, because it actually started as a serious game, and I'm like, why don't I mash like a serious game with like absolute full retard basically? And so actually I shouldn't be saying this because it's pretty out there, but he'll be tackling real world problems with his dancing basically. Credit crisis, etc., and it just goes down. It's like the progress bar, but yeah, I don't know if I should. I don't know if I shouldn't. That's the bit I'm trying to figure out. Like, how do I put the metagame around it? It might be just better as like, just full retard basically. Like just Will Smith dancing the game. I don't know.
I'm holding my breath because I'm trying not to laugh about how good that is. He should absolutely solve the Greek financial crisis.
Oh yeah, that's what he was doing. The first level is basically Wall Street, and you just start dancing, and the national debt's just going down as you're dancing. When you pull off a sweet move, everybody just starts throwing money around, So, it's, I mean, who's going to solve our world's problems if not Will Smith? I mean, he saved us from aliens, right?
And all sorts of things. Robots,
Yeah.
the zombies things from
The
I Am
zombies,
Legend with Bob Marley.
He's pretty much our generation's hero. I mean, we don't have really anyone else because Arnie's getting a bit old, so...
Yeah,
I thought
Tom
it'd be
Cruise
nice
is
to
weird
make a
now.
game about Will Smith that sort of steps up and takes on the world's problems, I guess.
I will back you 100% on that. I don't know if you'd heard, Will Smith was originally asked to play Django in Django Unchained,
Yeah, I heard
the new
about that,
Quentin
actually.
Tarantino movie. But he turned it down because he didn't
It's
get to
only
be the
Earl.
star of the movie.
Yeah.
But he totally would have been the star of the movie, just not enough.
would.
There was another character talking sometimes. So he's like, nope, I'll pass.
I think, yeah, I mean, even if he was like, second in command as far as the characters go, I mean, his smile, man. Once he goes like this, and it lights up the room with that smile, you just can't see anything else. You just see Will Smith's face, and that cheesy smile, and you're like, yeah, it's a Will Smith movie now.
I can't wait for your game to come out. I'm being selfish by talking about it so much, though. People should know more about game that you made. You talked about the zombie survival thing and how that's a bit played out. I thought that was interesting because one of your first games was a zombie game, one of the first games you released.
Yeah.
Anyway, so people should hear about that and how that led to. Did Edmund come after that directly, or was that?
Edmund was probably about 2007 or 8. I'll give you a quick rundown of like stuff I've released and stuff I haven't. So probably up until Zombocalypse, which was my first game, if you call it that. It's just like a 2-player zombie pixel shooter sort of thing. That was actually a team project.
Sorry, my dog. Barking. I got a sprayer. Yeah, this is a From Home show. Be quiet! So you were saying TIG Source Project? Zombie Apocalypse?
Okay. So, Zombocalypse was basically me and a friend just trying to make a game. And I don't really know too much about like art or anything, so it was just like try and mimic my favorite games. And at the time, it was kind of like Metal Slug. I love Metal Slug. Even now, Metal Slug's great. And that's just how I picked up pixel art, basically. I just started mimicking styles I liked, and then eventually I found my own thing, but it took like, I don't know, 5 years or so. But yeah, we made this game, and it wasn't really anything special. Like, I wouldn't say it's fun, but it's not like amazing or anything, It's just a first game, basically. And from there I thought, I could probably do all this myself, because he wasn't really too keen. He had a family and stuff. It was just like kind of a distraction for him. I could probably, do this myself until someone else, wanted to join in or something. So I spent a bit of time like doing just crappy little games on TIG Source. My first competition game, which isn't on my website because it's too bad.
No, what is it?
It was Rap Attack 2Pocalypse now, and okay, I'll set the scene, right?
It sounds so good!
It's absolutely horrible. Okay, now, this is after I had a bit of interest in art, right? I actually got a job at a game studio for a bit to try and, skill up, basically. And try and, get someone to teach me, like, how to do art and stuff, This was around about the same time as Zombocalypse. I thought, because I was working in a newsstand around about then, I'm like, this is crap, basically. Gonna try and, use my skills and try and get a job. So I got a job at a place called Orin, which made Unleash the Fury, and that tanked. So we all got redundancy notices at about, I think it was 2 weeks before Christmas, and so everybody in the company got laid off because the game sucked. I mean, I only got hired in like the last 6 months of the development, so I was just around for the kind of falling apart. And it wasn't my first game dev job, but it was like my first big game dev job. Yeah, anyway, the company's falling apart, 2 weeks to go, and there's a TIG Source competition, right? And I'm like, what else have we got to do with that time? Because right then we were just so bored, and like we're just sitting around waiting for, the company to come and clean out the assets. So we were so bored, we were like drawing, like bling, like, with like fancy markers on the side of our computer cases and stuff. We're just sitting around waiting to be fired. So we thought, let's just do the TIG Source competition, me and my mate. And we made this game that's about rappers. You know about Tupac, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I've heard of him.
So Tupac comes back to life, and it's called the 2Pocalypse. And basically, you have like he's some sort of like reincarnation of like an evil god, and it's like this. It's a story game basically, and you got to pick between several rappers, and you got to go like MC battle everybody, and then like sent Tupac back to hell basically. So it's kind of like a JRPG, and yeah, it's crap. It's a rubbish game. But
What? See, that's where you lose me. I'm right there with you. Like, okay, best game ever made. Tupac is the devil. Various
you'll
rappers,
say that right, but
and then you
so
say it's crap. It can't be crap.
it's so bad. I'd love to revise it because the concept's cool, but yeah, it was really badly done. Like we had like some of the ideas really cool. Like we had the four riders, the Twopocalypse, and they were just like, they were rappers on like these chromed out dinosaurs, like dinosaurs with rims as legs. Like it was awesome. Like they do like burnouts and stuff on them, but there just wasn't any meat in the gameplay. It just, it was all ideas. It was just, a bunch of guys about to get fired sitting around thinking of stupid ideas for like 2 weeks. And then about
Who
2
can't
days of
relate with that
implementation.
feeling? But that's all of our lives. We're all about to be fired, probably, from life in
Yeah,
general.
I mean, yeah. Being fired sucks. I mean, anyone that's been in that situation knows like how kind of nerve-wracking it is.
Absolutely. I want to play that Tupacalypse for sure.
I'll
Please,
send it
just
to
let
you,
us.
okay?
Will you?
It's
I appreciate it.
it's bad. Anyway, after that,
I don't believe you. So that you made that for TIG Source, and did that get
that
released?
got 34th.
Out of how many?
Oh, like 70 something.
It's not that bad.
It's not too bad, but I mean, you got to remember that TIG Source is kind of there's a lot of people trying to like learn to create games, so we're in the same boat basically. People that won those sorts of competitions when I was around was like Edmund McMillan and Farbs and stuff like that. People that kind of like moved on now, like they don't really do competitions anymore, but they're kind of either doing well or doing something else basically. So, Cactus was another one. Cactus won some TIG Source comps before my time, basically, when I was coming up making these rubbish games. So I missed the next TIG Source comp, and then the next one after that was the randomly generated name competition. There's a video game name generator floating around the net, and you can generate video game names. And the competition was around that. So basically, you just get a generated name and you make a game about it. Pretty
What
simple,
game did you
right?
make for that?
My first skydiving academy. So it was like a skydiving game, right? You jump out of a plane, but to play into like the My First thing, it was like there's My First baby toddler range. It's a My First basically baby skydiving. So you're a baby, you jump out of a plane, and you avoid rocks and obstacles on the way down, and you've got like, I think baby has 350 bones or something, and that was your HP, and when you hit a rock, you'd be like, you'd get a leg wound or something, and the baby go, ah, and like bounce off the rock and keep going. And you sort of navigate these canyons and try and get to the bottom, and you progress through the levels. And that got second, so I mean, definitely an improvement there somewhere. So I think it was because also I actually tried, I actually tried to make a decent game rather than just like, let's just sit around and make jokes sort of thing.
Well, I think that until you test the waters, you don't know exactly how hard you have to try and what directions you have to go in order to make a name for yourself in TIG Source. So it sounds like Tupacalypse showed you like we should have tried a little harder. So with my first skydiving academy, you put all in and almost got first place. Is that right?
I mean, the game that got first was actually really good. ROM Check Fail, you heard of it?
I think I have actually.
It was done by, I think it was Farbs actually. It's sort of like, you playing a Zelda or something, and you navigate like a world and like a little screen, and you kill the enemies, and then it changes up to a different, like maybe Mario or something like that, and the physics change and stuff. It was really cool. It was really well done. So yeah, I was glad that I didn't, win, because I mean that game's fantastic and just kind of pushed me even further. I'm not really a competitive person, but once you get me in like once I start something, I want to make it as good as I can. So But yeah, after that, it was Edmund, that was the adult competition. So it was like make something adult. I'm like,
For those who haven't played it, that was the first game of yours that I'd heard of.
That was probably like the first most people heard because I mean, it kind of went around the net, raping games type thing. You know, like everybody was kind of really, really divided on the topic, and I guess that was sort of the intention. I mean, I guess you can't make an adult game. Well, you can. I mean, that's a cop out to say that, but I think at the time, like art games weren't really that big, and everybody was just kind of more shocked than anything. It was definitely like there's a term for this. I remember reading it, like negative experience games.
Yeah, I just call them feel bad games.
Well, yeah, feel bad games.
People don't tend to think that that's what a video game is for, and
Yeah.
I think that people tend to think if something makes them feel bad, that it must be more legitimate or genuine in some way.
Uh, I don't
I
know.
don't
I don't
think so
think.
personally, but yeah,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, good.
I think each person's going to take something different. Like a lot of people didn't enjoy Edmund. I can totally understand. Like mechanically, there wasn't much there. I don't even think it's a good game. I think it's a game that was good for the time frame. You know, like I did that after work. That was the period where I was having like rough. You can tell by the games I make like what sort of mood I'm in. Like there was a lot of those sorts of prototypes I was knocking out around then, just like really messed up ideas. You know, like everything. You know, like combinations of reading 4chan and making games. It's pretty potent. So anyway, Edmund was it was pretty dividing, and I can understand why, even on a mechanical level, like it can, like story games and art games you have to be in the right mood to enjoy it. I guess is what I'm trying to say, and like not everybody can get into that mood. Like, I'm trying to think of a recent art game that I played that I enjoyed.
It's I don't know if you played Cart Life. That's
Yeah,
the
oh
one
yeah,
people
Cat
have
Life.
been
Okay,
talking
so
about
I
the
mean,
most. Which
yeah,
when I played
actually,
it, I actually thought like, oh, it's like Edmund except about going to work.
yeah, that's actually a really good game to bring up. So it's almost like combos the thing we were talking about before, like the survival in financial survival and like an art game. But yeah, Cat Life's a good example. I mean, I didn't enjoy it. I didn't think it was fun, but it was definitely. I sat back after it and go, that was a cool experience. Like I enjoyed what the message was, and I got the bad ending. With the this. I don't want to ruin it for everybody, but
Ah, it's
I
all
got
right. It's been out for a little while now. You can.
okay. Well, yeah, I got the bad ending, and it was kind of like, wow. I mean, for 90% of the game, I just felt like I was, putting newspapers in the stand or whatever, but and just doing meaningless, tedious things. But I guess that's the point of the game. Like, I mean, I worked at a newspaper stand, and it feels pretty much like that, minus the dramatics. It's boring as hell. Like, the only time anything happens in a newspaper. Well, I worked at a newsagent, so it was pretty much the same thing. But yeah, it was a boring job, and I thought the game conveyed that really well. Like, that it is tedious and that no one really cares about you. It's just everybody else. And
So why do you think that resonated? Because it won a bunch of awards
well,
at the
I think
IGF.
I think a lot of people don't. I mean, if you had showed me that game when I was working in a newsstand, I would have been like, yeah, so what? They've made a game about my life minus the dramatics. So I mean, to some people, games are an escape. Like games, they want to play Mario, they want giant mushrooms, they want a magical experience. They don't want to be reminded that their life sucks. I mean, if you made a game about living in the country and trying to make shitty games, then I'd think it was crap because that's my life. If I want to play games where I escape and I want to experience something new, and I think a lot of the people at that vote on these sorts of things, I don't really pay too much attention to the IGF or whatever, but I think a lot of people that haven't experienced these things could take something from that game. It's interesting. It's definitely something that, I mean, it gives you a life perspective of something you haven't seen if you've never been there, I guess. But for someone that, oh
I'm
yeah,
sorry, you were gonna say? No,
For
no.
someone that works that job every day, I don't think it'd be fun to play. You know, I mean,
And I'm not sure if he meant it to be fun to play. Like when I played Edmund, I didn't feel like, oh, he wanted me to have some fun. I
no,
felt like you
I
were
don't
like,
think it is. It. I think everybody like narrowly defines fun. You know, like um, there's definitely like fun games. You know, you can sit down and go, wow, this is really fun. But there's also games that you think about like a really good movie. Like what's the last movie you thought you just it was in your head for the next day and you're like, damn, that was really deep, or damn, that was, you know, and you kind of go back to it expecting more depth. Now, some games won't have that. Um, you know, you'll return to them and it'll be the same sort of experience. And well, that's another topic. But I mean, I think it's interesting that the games can provoke that sort of response because, I mean, that's the reason that a lot of people got into games to tell stories. I mean, you can tell it through like gameplay, but it's not. It doesn't have that effect that you're like, oh damn, that was really cool. You know, that was a really good gaming moment. You know, even if it wasn't like actiony or fun at all. You know, like
yeah,
one of the
sorry.
best bits in what's a game in like Final Fantasy. I brought that up before. Final Fantasy VII is, I don't know if I should be dropping spoilers, is when one of the party members dies.
Hmm.
And it's just an interactive cutscene, but because it's been built up, I mean, it's a story, and people react differently to it. Some might just press the next button if it skips the cutscene, and pass it. But others will be like deeply affected by it, and I think we're all drawn to games in sort of in different ways. Like not everybody's just here to make Mario jump across lots of things. Some people want to an awesome experience. Like Shadow of the Colossus is another good example. You could just run around killing, the Colossi, but I mean, there was that sort of backstory behind it, and you sort of left it going, hey, that was cool. So not every game has to just offer one of the other. You can offer both or none.
Yeah, yeah. People are really wild about Bioshock Infinite right now, which is a game that's not afraid to make you feel legitimately bad a lot of the time. But then it gives you a power fantasy at the same time, which makes you feel really good, and then it makes you feel like maybe you just did something awful, and then all of a sudden you're riding around in a skyhook and smiling your face off because you're in this beautiful world. It's we're getting to the point where I think games are willing to pepper all sorts of different motivators and rewards and punishments on top of just giving us an idea of what it's like to be a human being, where sometimes you feel good and sometimes you feel awful, and aren't afraid to make it constantly in the pursuit of fun. I hope so. Does that sound
Well,
right?
yeah. I mean, I hope so too. I mean, there's only so much Mario I can take, and then you want something different. It's as
Sure.
simple as that. Like if you spend weeks playing the same sorts of games, it's just natural to want something different. I mean,
And you didn't. You had big success with Edmund.
well, I wouldn't
Uh,
call it success. In, I don't know what
what?
the well, I mean, it was
Award?
success, but
You
I
won an
mean,
award.
yeah,
Nice.
I mean, it won, but I mean, it's at what price, I guess. Like
Hmm.
everybody that said that saw it before, you know, that kind of like my friends and stuff that basically came around, whatever, while we're drinking. I'm like, hey, check out my game. They're all like, this is fucked up. Don't release it. And I'm like, but you know, I'm a little, put it this way, I'm a little bit more hesitant to release. I've got like lots of serious sort of prototypes that I've been working on. Um, I recently became like fascinated with jails. Jails was like one of my things for a couple of months, so I wrote like a little sort of Edmund-sized game around it, but I haven't really released it yet. I mean, I just haven't. It needs something more, and it doesn't feel right. Yeah.
It sounds like an amazing concept, though.
Well, it's just about prison life, and I think there's lots of those already, but it just does something a little bit different.
There's a lot of prison life games already?
Well, there is and there isn't. There's Joke. Have you heard of M. Dickey?
No. What's that?
Oh, okay. He's a developer that he did. Well, it wasn't really a prison game that had morality or anything, but it was. I mean, there's also prison games, but there's nothing that really tackles like morality in prisons and stuff. And I'll get to M. Dickey later. He's one of my favorite developers. He kind of inspired a few games. But he did a prison game, but it's nothing special. It's just kind of like a fighting game. Who else did prison games? Prison Architect, but I mean that's kind of like an RTS or like some sort of strategy game. But yeah, there's nothing that has like that I can think of anyway that has heavy characterization and like tackles moral issues in prisons and stuff. Yeah, I'm just fascinated by I get fascinated by things easy like the financial crisis, and I'll make a game about that eventually. And it's just I don't really have any aside from that RPG that I talked about before. I don't really have any big game ideas that I want to do or want to cover. I just get obsessed with like little ideas, and then I'll make a game about it. If it's cool, I'll release it. If it's not, just sit in my pile of unfinished games.
Ah, I'm mad about that pile. I want the whole pile. I want the prison game and the Tupac game. For Christ's sakes.
That one's out, but I mean, yeah.
But it's not on the website. I feel as though I was duped.
Okay, put it this way. I think a lot of indie developers release I don't know, hundreds of games over there. I mean, I can think of maybe a handful of developers that have 100 games, that I know, that I follow on Twitter or something. They're kind of like little sketches, each game is not necessarily finished, but kind of like a brain fart or, just like a sketch. A sketch is probably the best way to describe it. And some people release them, some people don't. That's just the truth. I'm trying to think of a developer that has tons of games. JWAP,
yeah.
Sophie Holden.
Yep.
She has tons of
releases
games.
a lot.
But I mean, and then there's people that like me just release kind of playable stuff that's finished that isn't, crap. Basically, I'm not calling their games crap. I'm just saying they have no filter, and by choice. They have no filter by choice, whereas I have a filter. And I don't think either is necessarily right or wrong, but it's just how you spend your time, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Didn't mean to sound like I was judging you. I just
No,
play
it's
your
all
games
good.
is all. Can't help
Yeah,
it.
no, that's cool, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
Uh, guess we can do a couple of questions. I did want to. There's something else I wanted to ask about before I forgot. Oh well, I'll come back to it. Sermon asks opinions on Steam Greenlight. You have a game on there, no?
nah, it was funny. We just got straight. Steam just went to my email. Basically, they just said, "Hey, do you want to get Under the Ocean on Steam?" And we said, "Yeah." I don't know why. And then I'm like, hey, can I sneak? Because I'm actually working on a fistful build, fistful of gun.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried to sneak a little. I'm like, can I get that on Steam also? And they're like, yeah, sweet. So
Is that going to be on Steam too?
it's on Steam right now. It's just private. It's not on the store. So
Oh, okay. Yeah, we should
working
talk
on
about Festival of Gun real quick before we accidentally move on to something else. We have about a half hour in, so
I'll
make sure
answer
we
his
touch on
question
that.
first.
Oh, sure.
I'll answer the question first. I think Greenlight's pretty good. I think it's. I think the indie community is pretty divided over Steam. Like some people like it, some people don't. I think it's good. I actually think I like the fact that it filters out content. That they have some sort of. This is coming from a person who's never had a game on Steam until now. So I appreciate that they filter content because it gives the players. It gives the players they know that each game they're going to buy it's good and it's not gonna water down. Like you kind of get the problem with iOS and stuff like that there's just so much noise and you get these crappy really commercial games floating to the top just because they optimize how their microtransactions or something stupid works and it kind of comes down to, I mean, the rating system and stuff helps, but it turns into a different ball game when there's not a human there saying this is good, this is crap, this is good, this is crap. You know, it just it turns into cheaping the system, I guess. You know, like iOS as a platform is for for me, it's just unusable. It's just too much noise. Whereas,
Yeah,
I mean, Steam, you know, it picks its titles, and you're like, you know, I might enjoy that, and you know, it's just elegantly laid out, and there's not just like a sea of noise.
yeah, it's a curation process that when you know that the people who are the curators love video games, even make video games. In Valve's case, that's what their whole culture is around. You can have faith that they're only going to put something on their store that's worthwhile, whereas iOS is just, they want to be the biggest and they want to have the most, so they let as many people on as they can, which makes it very difficult. And a lot of developers I've talked to are abandoning iOS or close to abandoning it in favor of Sony and Nintendo, actually, who are really trying to take up arms in the curation process on the PS Vita, PS3, the 3DS, and the Wii U. And I don't know if you've talked to them yet, but I'll make sure you have their contact info because they'd want to curate the crap out of you. They heard
All
about the
right,
Will
yeah,
Smith
cool,
game.
man.
Yeah,
I
they
don't.
love it. I'll,
I've never talked to them, mate, but yeah, that'd be cool.
I'll absolutely put you in touch with them. That would be my pleasure. Let's see. R. Xanadu asks, would you be interested in making a game about a regular job similar to cart life, i.e. being a news reporter, running a dance club, being a pimp? How is being a pimp a regular job,
Yeah, I
R.
mean,
Xanadu? It's a pretty weird job, but yes. What would you think about doing that at one point?
yeah, man. If how would I put it? If I got motivated to do it, like if I get obsessed, like right now it's financial crisis and stuff like that. But if I ever got obsessed about like a particular topic, for sure, man, like without a doubt, it just comes down to if I actually make it or not, or if I just sit there on Reddit reading topics for like the next 3 hours. Like every day, just reading. Because I mean, I read as much as I can at the moment because I don't really have a lot of social interaction being out in the country, so it's pretty much just all reading like newspapers and articles and stuff online, and that's pretty much all I do outside of making games.
Huh. It's I believe the guy who made Cart Life had worked that kind of job before. I thought he worked with bagels though. I'll have to double check. Um,
That's the downloadable character, isn't it? You
oh
pay
yeah,
the
my mistake.
to get the
Yeah,
bagel guy.
the bagel
I'm
guy.
like, the bagel guy was like, yeah, nah, I'll try it first. So, I mean,
But
some people really like that game though. I mean, I could see why it appeals. I wouldn't just because it isn't my cup of tea doesn't mean it's not someone else's. So, yeah, I thought it was at least eye-opening. I guess if I hadn't worked in that sort of profession before, I'd be like, this is pretty depressing.
but it was just redundant. It sounds like having already known that that is a job that sucks any sort of life out of you and makes you feel like nothing is worth it. And everything about it though, it is a very effective game. And you were talking about art game earlier, using the term. Something you may not know about me is I am annoyingly, staunchly opposed to using that term myself because of a lot of reasons. But I'm open to the idea of being wrong about that. So tell
I
me,
think I
yeah.
think I just use it because it's the easiest way to identify, to people who kind of have seen, games. I mean, everybody identifies them at least probably in the last couple of years as art games. Like if you go on Reddit, someone posts like a wanky art game or a game with heavy story, everybody like fuck off art game fag or whatever. You know,
Yeah, that's
that's the
a
easiest way to identify like what sort of game it is. But if you had to if you couldn't use the word art game, um, there's no there's it's a story game. I mean, it's just basically a story game that presents, you know, for the most part, something that's different that hasn't been covered. It's trying to trying to do something new with the medium, maybe. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
it doesn't have to be story either. Like, lots of them are cool, like mechanics and stuff with just some sort of meaning behind it, and that's fine. I mean,
yeah. I guess meaning is that what art game you think means? Is that it's a
well,
game that was
like,
intended to have some meaning to it?
like I said, I don't like use art game as like a genre or something like that.
Ah,
But yeah, I guess that's what it means to me. Like it's because I mean, getting back to the whole art game thing, or talking about it a bit more, I don't actually think like art's a relevant term anymore. Like it's kind of ask someone to define art these days, and they're just like they'll give you a couple of responses, and none of which I can agree with. Like
mm,
I don't think paintings are kind of I didn't get into the whole like going to a gallery or whatever and like talking about how my emotions feel in front of the painting or whatever because it doesn't really do anything for me. Like just looking at like games like Cart Life actually do things for me. I actually
mm.
feel like I didn't enjoy the game, but I walked away with a feeling. I'm like you know that's something new that I haven't felt in the game before, and that's cool. I mean, if people can create those emotions, yeah, I don't have to label it as an art game. I wouldn't label as a if everybody didn't call it that, then I'd just call it like a cool story game or something.
Yeah, yeah. It's tough using the words that people are going to at least keep listening to you and feel like they know what you're talking about. But I got to the point personally where I would call a game, if I called a game art game, I think the last one I used that term for was You, Me, and the Cubes. I don't know if
Oh
you've heard
well,
of. Have you heard of?
experimental games maybe? No, I haven't.
Yeah,
So.
well, there's some games, and people are going to get so bored. They hate this topic, so I'm going to not talk about it for too long. But for me, there's experimental games, there's feel bad games, there's games that are just about the design and the procedures that you go through, the mechanics of the game that ignore any sort of escapism completely. There's games that are focused just on story, and they all have an art to them, but
Sure.
they're not necessarily. I don't know, because Gears of War, that's a game about Cliffy B. I feel like I know what it's like to drink beers with him and yell
Yeah,
at strangers now. I feel
Gears
like
of War
I've been
was
in his
cool when it
frat.
first came out. Like Gears of War
Yeah, it
was awesome.
was.
It
Absolutely, it
was really
was.
cool. Like the cover system, and it just felt real gritty, and just everything had like a mass to it. It had a style to it. It's like I don't know. I really liked it. I thought it was cool. And
Me
I mean,
too. Made me feel a legit bro feeling, which
yeah,
is
hell
what
yeah,
Cliffy B is all about, I think. So,
yeah, it
art
was
game,
cool.
my book. HD Hurricane asks, since this is your first game people have to pay for, do you, as an indie dev, bank on customers on Steam to buy your game and never play it? I think I know what he means. Since the release of Steam, many people buy a lot of indie games but never play them. Is this a consideration for you? It
Not
is
really.
interesting. There's this cultural shift where people love Steam. They love that feeling of checking out something that's new on Steam and then purchasing it and then thinking, yeah, I'm going to get around to that, and then they just never
Yeah.
do.
I've never actually considered that. It's a pretty good point, man. Um, yeah, it's not even something I've considered. I mean, I hope people play the game. That'd be nice.
But you could feasibly, as I'm getting to know you in this episode, this first time we've ever talked, and I'm coming away from talking to you that you're a guy who gets really excited about particular ideas. Is passionate about crafting them in a way that meets your own internal standards, so you can finish it and get that feeling of, well, it may not be ready, but it feels like it's done, so I'm going to get it out there.
Yeah.
And you're passionate enough about these ideas that you could sell people on just the ideas, and then they'll never
Well,
get around to playing them, and you could become a rich man. I would buy your Will Smith game and then maybe never play it because I'm just so excited about the concept, and then Tupac Apocalypse right
I
after
think
that, and then the baby dying by rocks game, Broken Baby Bones the game. All of these concepts are really, they resonate on a way that will get me to buy it, and then whether I play it or not is another question. So I wonder
I
if that's
think
tempting for you to just put out a bunch of ideas and try to sell them.
I don't know, like, cause okay, there's definitely like you can sell games on that, and that's pretty much what Kickstarter is. Like, I mean, a lot of those games on there just there's a good chance some of those won't work out, but their ideas are fantastic, and that's why they hit their goals, right? But you always have games that are just like mad fun to play and like just have some awesome mechanic, and I think that's attractive too. Like, I'll give you an example. Well, Fistful of Gun, that's probably the most recent one, and I mean that I made that I just tried to focus on mechanics, like because I don't want to like fall into like this kind of groove as a developer that I just make one type of game. You know, like I don't want to make just atmospheric games or just experimental games. We'll call it that. I want to make everything, and like Fistful of Gun was like I want to make a shooter where the Xbox controller feels like a real gun. So you'd flick the controller to shoot the pistol sort of thing, and then you'd reload it with like an accurate sort of finger movement of like placing bullets in a chamber. And I was trying to think of like all these weird ways that I could mechanically tie the weapons to the guns, and it's still a work in progress. Like I've got 11 characters now. 11
What?
label. Yeah, I added like it started the little demo on my site's 3, but I've been working on it behind the scenes, and you can play like I've always wanted to make like a really massively co-op game ever since Bomberman. Like Bomberman on like I think it was Super Nintendo with the dual tap thing, whatever it was, the extra controller thing.
Yeah.
It was awesome, man. It was just crazy fun. So I'm like, this game has to be like, as many players as I can fit onto, into the game technically. So I think 11 was about the limit before it starts to. It's, up to 4 people on a keyboard, which is basically impossible, but you can sub those out for joypads, and then 4 analog controllers as well and 1 mouse. Sorry, 6 analogs and 1 mouse. So I mean, you can play. I mean, there's 1 character on the mouse without the keyboard. There's 4 characters that are just directionals plus buttons. It's an absolute nightmare basically to build, but I want like as many people in the game as possible co-op. So yeah, 11 was the limit. So 10 controllers plus a mouse, and that's really interesting to me because I'm doing something that probably hasn't been done before. Keep in mind, each one of these characters has a different control. So like there'll be the sniper that has a different control to, say, the brawler, which will be just like a melee character that can throw guys around, double dragon style sort of thing. And I mean, there's all these different characters, and it's really interesting to try and balance them. And it's a mechanical thing rather than story or anything, because it's just like your typical Western setting, and you've got all these 11 different controls, and it's just, as a developer, I really enjoy trying to make it all work, I guess, and it's very different than any other sort of game I've made.
Yeah, it sounds incredibly intense, but exciting at the potential of getting all those pieces together to fit properly,
Yeah.
and
I mean,
provide people with that feeling of having a huge group where everyone has their own skill.
Exactly.
And you're all
Yeah.
in it. It sounds awesome. I can't wait to play it.
Yeah, it probably the thing I can liken it most to is like the TF2 classes. Like imagine if the TF2 classes were all, I mean, they all play different, so that goes without saying, but imagine playing that local co-op, with friends, and like, each one controls different, has like little unique, quirks to it. So it's kind of what I'm trying to create, I guess.
With a top-down action.
Yeah, with a top-down action,
adventure.
explosions and shooting people type thing. Western vibe.
Yeah, absolutely. It gives a real... The graphics are so great, too. I haven't taken the time to compliment you on your
Okay.
artwork, because it's beautiful stuff, and I'm glad you put those tutorials up. I almost posted it in the post for Destructoid to get people to watch the show, but I thought it might limit who people think the show is for. But people
Yeah,
should
fair
definitely go to your YouTube channel if they want to learn how to do
Yeah,
sprite
man.
art.
About my art, I've never really like. I'm not artistic or anything. I mean, now I am. Hear me out. Okay, hear me out. Hear me out. All right. So, I was never artistic as a kid. Like, I had interests in movies and stuff, but it was mostly like storytelling, that sort of thing. And it was only when I like probably hit probably close to 20 that I thought I actually tried to get. Hey, here's a funny story. I actually tried to get into a game school. It was the first in the country. Like, never heard of it before. Now they're everywhere. So I tried to get in this game school. My art sucked that much that they didn't even reply to me. Didn't even reply to me. I like sent in this giant folio. Didn't even reply to me. So that was Quantum, just in case you're wondering.
Wow.
Now who's laughing, Quantum? Anyway, so I wasn't ever like really artistic as a kid or anything, and I picked that up pretty much just through like lots of practice. Like I'd sit there religiously just drawing stuff out and doing game ideas, just fully just the art of it. And probably took like a good, I don't know, between, I reckon I started drawing seriously probably about the same time I started games. So by the time I was about 25, I was pretty good at it. Like, not great, but pretty good. And now I'm getting pretty good, like better, but still not as good as it could be. So I think anything's just practice is kind of like what I'm saying. So all these tutorials and stuff is like, people got to understand that that's like 8 years of practice right there. It's not like talent. Like lots of people are born with talent, and I'm jealous, but you can achieve the same results just through that hard work, and I think it's pretty important to understand, especially when you're doing tutorials. Because I was really kind of demotivated when I first started learning. I'm like, God damn, how do they do this? This is bullshit. And I was just absolutely focused on the end result and like, how do I get this good? And a lot of the times you can just like lose perspective. So yeah, that's probably the biggest thing you need to worry about when you're doing like trying to learn art or programming or anything like that. Like my
And in
music,
general, it sounds like you've lived by the idea that you're enjoying the process and you care very much about how your end result is, but even when you've made stuff that you didn't feel was good enough after you were done, you didn't stop and give up because you enjoyed the process, and that's how you continued to practice.
yeah, pretty much, man. I mean, the process is definitely more important to me than like getting peers or anything, like anyone on the internet to say, hey, that's a good job, because half the stuff I do I don't even release. Like I think that boils down to why I don't release a lot of stuff, is because I make most of these games for me, to be honest. I'm like kind of like a selfish developer, I just make things that I think would be cool, and that's why I like making free games too, because I don't have to answer to anyone. So it's just like I get to make whatever I want, and if people like it, then cool. If not, then cool too. So, and same with
Yeah,
art.
absolutely. I hope you get rich that way.
Well, I
Myself.
don't want to. I don't want tons of money, man. I just want enough to live.
I know you don't, but I have a vested
I think-
interest. One of the reasons I do this show is I have a vested interest in the people who their process creates things that I want. Those are the people I selfishly want to succeed and for other people to emulate, because then I'll have more stuff I like.
Yeah,
It's all
well,
about me, really.
I think that's important, but like, I mean, end of the day, money is just a tool to live. Like, there's nothing really worth buying in this world other than like a fast car maybe, but
A fast car that you can
Yeah,
take
shit.
to the Tupocalypse. With shiny rims. That's what I'd like to see you driving down. You were talking about sketch games before, and
Yeah.
how Vlambeer puts them out. They did that with Radical Fishing, which then got ripped off, and then they made
Yeah.
Ridiculous Fishing. I wonder if that was something you watched happen, and what you think of that
Yeah.
whole process, and if you took anything from that process that they went through.
I think it's a two-edged sword. Like you can look at that from like any angle. You can go, they spent the time making this, awesome game. I thought it was cool. Like, I thought the Flash version was cool, and they made this cool game, and then someone rips it off. But I mean, that's the nature of the business. Like I've made art for clones. When I was learning, I helped the dude make a clone, and I mean, it sucks, but at the same time, um, I think end of the day, well, how do I word this? It definitely sucks. Put it that way. Like, I mean, the good side about releasing something early is you get like people's feedback. Releasing a free game like Under the Garden for me was, a big turnaround. Like people really liked it. It's probably the most popular game I've worked on. Like people like Under the Garden, and I'm like, hey, we could really make a better version of this. And I told Mike, and he's like, do you want me to help you make and I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And that scenario is definitely what it's important, because they could have spent 2 years on like a awesome you know version of whatever their free game, and not release a free game, and then when they release it to the public it bombs and just no one cares. So releasing that free version is pretty important, because you get like some feedback, you get to gauge how much people want the game, basically. And the other side of that is you're going to get cloned if it's good. So,
Right.
I mean,
So they had to suffer that feeling of kind of soul theft. I talked with
yeah,
Rami about it once. Rami from Vlambeer, and
yeah,
he just he was he felt completely emptied out from it. But
yeah,
then from that, they wanted to fill themselves emotionally again. So they ended up overdoing it, making a game that's almost too good. Ridiculous Fishing. Like it's the amount of passion and craftsmanship they tossed into that simple idea was a wonderful thing. So we all won for it. I'm glad that it
yeah. I
happened
mean,
that way.
I think end of the day, it's a trade-off. Like you can work on a game for 2 years and just have no one play it. That's happened to me. Like um, I've worked
Which
on
game
some
did that happen to you with?
Black Market. We made a Flash game that was at the time it was pretty impressive technically, and just scale wise. It was We never released it on any portals or anything because it just didn't really do that well. It was too hardcore. It's like a space trading game, like kind of like Elite or those sorts of games.
Sounds
So
awesome.
well, yeah, it was cool, but it just never really took off. And I think it was a combination of not having the audience there at the right time to point the game in the right direction, figuring out things that people liked, people didn't like, and end result, there just wasn't that much market there for like a Flash Elite game. Like most people, I think you'd have a good chance at like doing like an application one with like big budget everything, like FTL. It's a good example. But there just wasn't much of a market there, and you can't really gauge that until you put a game out. Like you can do all the marketing you want, sort of do all the research you want, trying to guess how much it's going to sell, and if there's a market there. But end of the day, man, on an indie budget, the easiest way is just to release a little demo. Like
Mm.
Fistful of Gun, it's another good example. Like I just released a little kind of work in progress alpha, and it did good. So I thought, yeah, I'll keep going with it, type thing.
Yeah,
You
that
know,
makes sense. But we live in this era now where you can have something like Minecraft, which was out for a while. Nobody really paid attention. It got a little bit of attention, and then it just found its time in the culture where there was a hunger for that, and people got a buzz around it. So people started playing it because other people started playing it, and it snowballed into this gigantic thing for a game that had been out in beta for a while before it eventually caught on. So maybe there'll be a time when Black Market is suddenly what everyone is playing.
well,
It
I
could
doubt it.
happen.
I think Black Market is a miss. Like that's
Really?
fine. I mean, yeah. I
It's
mean,
hard for me to believe. It sounds good. And knowing your
uh,
brain, as I
I th-
have
I
started to
think
get to know it, sounds good.
I think it was just too much of a miss. Like we spent too long on things that just didn't matter. Like I was way too art focused. I didn't do any of the design for it. I just sort of had a say in it. Basically, it was designed by committee, and I don't think that works. I just
Mm.
don't. Like we actually went through a similar thing with Under the Ocean recently, because there's two people on instead of just me developing it, which is what happened for the original. And we sort of, last year was just a mixed match of like it was just a hodgepodge of like two people's ideas mashed into one, and you really need that one person that just takes the helm and says, "This is what we got to do." So um, I don't think design by committee, especially with small teams, or especially with like, well, it may work in some circumstances, but yeah, for us it didn't.
I've seen
I
it
mean,
fail more often than not. Resident Evil 6 is probably the last big AAA failure that was made by committee. To me, it's like if everyone's playing Fistful of Gun and they all have their place and it's a 11-player multiplayer, but everyone's got their own class and their own controls, great. Everyone's got their place in the grander scheme. Whereas if you're playing, if you're designing a game by committee and everyone's like, you press A button, you press B, I'm going to be the left analog, you're the right, then it's impossible to move anywhere or work together
not only
because
that, when you're making a game, it's like it's especially in the early stages, it's not so much about mechanics as about getting like the right set of features down. You know, like you want how to describe it. Okay, Under the Ocean to Mike is more Minecraft style. Like he wanted more building elements because his brain works in a kind of more technical way. He doesn't really get into like net stories or anything like that, so he doesn't really understand. Well, he understands it. He just he thinks building mechanics basically. I don't know why, but that's just how it happens. Whereas me, I'm more let's make it more exploration and adventure and stuff like that. So even just in like between those two, like those two dynamics, it can create like hellish problems where you have a building system that's too complex or not complex enough, or if you're not. I mean, it makes sense to design by committee if you're like cloning something, or if you're making a game that's been done before. Like if you're making it's an example, like an FPS or something that doesn't stray too far from another game, you're fine. You're pretty sweet, but um, yeah, we haven't had a lot of success with it. Doesn't mean it's not doable though. I'm sure lots of people can make it happen. Just I'm not skilled enough.
yeah, well, I don't know. It's you're right. You should be open-minded, and anything's possible. But I've
Sure.
personally played more games that were made by one or two people, where each had kind of distinct roles, and one of them was the leader, and the other was the leader of their own aspects of creating the game, but the other was definitely the director, and they put out something singular and unique to who they are as people. And then I feel
Yeah,
like
I
I
think
got to know them through the game, so then I win because
exactly.
that's what I want.
That's almost like the defining factor of like kind of indie games is like you get this like when you play like Cactus's games, you just get this vibrant personality of like I'm on drugs type thing when you're playing his games, and it's through all his games. There's nothing that really changes too much. You can see he had like you know almost full creative control over what was happening. He's like, yeah, I want to make it like this, and each developer makes something different. That's cool. I really like that, and I guess that's the result of like one person designing it and one person doing the visual art and stuff. So very clean focus. Whereas
Hmm.
games that are designed by commercial games and stuff, you'll see that they have like lots of features and lots of things tacked on. Like if it's you know, that pretty much sums it up actually. Like
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you
just
played Resident Evil 6, but
I stopped
it
at four,
is.
man.
Yeah, four is pretty. Four is an amazing game.
Yeah,
Five
four was
has
cool.
shadows of four, which makes me feel like, oh, it's a nice, failed remake, but it's still got the overall shape of four to it. Six is just you're power sliding in between zombies' legs and shooting them in the crotch, and then you're karate kicking a scorpion, and then you're in a plane crash, and then you're riding on. It's kind of a beautiful train wreck in a way, but you wouldn't want to actually pay for it. Like if somebody gives it to you, you should probably play it. Don't
I
buy it.
saw a trailer for it. I don't know if it was real or not, but the main character, I think it was Chris, and he's like hanging from a plane or something, or he's in a chopper, and the bad guy's hanging from a chopper, and like this, I think he's a tyrant or something, and he's like following them in a chopper, and he's got a gun or something. I thought it was just absolutely retarded, so I missed it. Sorry, man.
Yeah, that's about right. It's a game that you will laugh at, maybe, someday. And I'm sorry, if there's Resident Evil 6 fans out there, I hate to be a jerk to a game you like, but that's just my honest take on it. We have a couple more questions. I feel like a dink for not asking them because we only have... We're almost done. Show's almost over. Did it go fast for you, Paul?
Yeah, pretty much, man.
Yeah, that's good to hear. It went fast for me, too, which is a good sign. Xanadu asks, any thoughts on diversity in indie games versus AAA games? I guess you've talked about that a bit.
Covered that a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the line is getting... hopefully smaller and smaller. Indie games are getting treated like they're big budget and are getting big budgets now. Journey being one of the ones that immediately comes to mind. Oh no, we're actually out of time completely. I misread my texts from Sinistar. Okay. I apologize. So people should follow you on Twitter. You're at Farmer Gnome on Twitter. Is that right?
That's the one, at Farmer Gnome.
And where else can they see the things you're doing?
I've got a site at farmergnome.com, but just follow me on Twitter, and I'll give out some. I'll probably do another. I usually give out like tons of free keys because I don't really. Something about charging for games, it still grates me a bit. So yeah, follow me on Twitter, and I'll give out some keys next time I'm awake.
Yeah, what time is it where you are right now?
It's 10:30, but I haven't slept, so I've just gone like around the clock. It's 10:30 a.m.
It's way early to be. Did you drink coffee yet?
No, my hours are all messed up, man. I go to sleep about this time, and then I'll wake up at 4 in the afternoon.
Well, thank you so much for either staying up or waking up for the show. Either one is very nice of you. I appreciate it. I guess this is where we wave goodbye. Goodbye, everybody.
All right, see you, man.